Hey everyone, welcome to my channel English for All Reasons Good, based on the CBSE guidelines and syllabus. Today, we are going to revise the poem Fire and Ice by Robert Frost. First, about the poet. Robert Frost was an American poet and winner of 4 Pulitzer Prizes. His famous works include Fire and Ice, Mending Wall, Birches, Out Out, Nothing Gold Can Stay, and Home Burial. His 1916 poem, The Road Not Taken, is often read at graduation ceremonies across the United States. Frost spent his first 40 years as an unknown, and then he exploded on the scene after returning from England at the beginning of World War I. That was his comeback. He died of complications from prostate surgery on January 29, 1963. Now, Fire and Ice, the poem. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. So, what Frost actually meant by fire and ice, or what fire and ice they stand for in the poem. So, fire, as you can see, it stands for greed, avarice, lust, desire, passion, conflict, and fury. So, this is fire. Similarly, ice, it is for everything cold, cruelty, hatred, rigidity, insensitivity, intolerance, indifference, and coldness in every sense. So that is ice. Now, what is the theme of the poem first? The theme of the poem stands on the fact that end is inevitable, though means can be different. So, the controversy that the poet highlights is whether the world will end in fire or in ice. So, used as symbols for desire as an outcome of intense passion and hatred as a result of cold reasoning, respectively, the poet states that the world will be consumed in these extremes until and unless we try to hold them. So the theme, it says it all. So it says that the symbols for which fire and ice have been used, if those things, those emotions, intense desire and insensitivity on the other hand, the indifference on the other hand, the cold numbness, they are not controlled. These extremes, they will they will result in the end of the world. So now why theme is important? Now theme is important while you are answering questions, because with this background, you know what exactly you have to write. Now the central idea. Fire and ice is a symbolic poem. So as we've already discussed what fire stands for and what ice stands for. So it is symbolic poem. Through this short, thought provoking poem of 9 lines, the poet Robert Frost has succeeded in leaving a deep impact on the sensibilities of man. On the question of the end of the world, two opinions emerge. According to one, the world will end in fire, and according to the other, it will end in ice. The experience of the poet favors him to choose fire as the medium, the same fire as of unchecked desires and intense passion, which is enough to wipe out humanity. So, the first thing is that he favors fire. Fire that stands for unchecked desires and intense passion, which is enough to wipe out humanity. So, this is what it is pointing to. The poet is pointing to these desires, the unchecked desires and intense passion, these that are on a rise. The materialistic world. In this materialistic world, these emotions or these desires, they are growing. So these are taking the earth, taking the world towards its end. But on the other hand, there's another thought of the end of the world in ice. So that also cannot be omitted. For the icy numbness of emotions resulting from indifference, rigidity, and hate, as the poet knows it himself, is equally sufficient and will serve the purpose if the world is to end twice. So, in the second part of the poem, the poet says that even ice, it would be sufficient to bring an end to humanity because these emotions, indifference, rigidity, hate, these are also equivalent to the emotions of fire, emotions of desire, emotions of passion. So he says that these will also be sufficient to serve the purpose. And interestingly, the poet is conscious of both. So man himself will be responsible for his own destruction. So summing up is that the poet tells that end of the world is inevitable and there are two groups. One group favors fire, fire in the sense extreme desires, intense passion. And then there's another group that favors ice or that thinks that ice will do the purpose. And ice there that stands for cold, icy numbness in the form of indifference, hatred, rigidity, and cruelty. So these emotions, if these are not controlled, if these are not bridled, then the end of humanity, it is doomed. Now comes symbolism. So it's a highly symbolic poem. So this question is very important. So symbolically, fire and ice are symbols of uncontrollable desire and hatred, respectively, which the poet is aware of. Now these things are going to repeat everywhere in every question, in every answer you will have to write it. So these will be repeated, and as we read it more and more, so these will become part of your memory. So there's no need to memorize them, just understand them and you will be able to write whatever question comes. So symbolically, fire and ice, they are symbols of uncontrollable desire and hatred, respectively, which the poet is aware of. So both are able to destroy and destruct according to their nature. Fire within seconds and ice silently and steadily. Similarly, one day humanity will succumb to surging desires and inflated passion on one hand and numbness of emotions like hatred, indifference, and the like on the other. So, symbolically, fire, it stands for, again, same thing. We have to write desire, uncontrollable, all unbridled, any word here, and hatred. So, fire stands for these two things, and ice here, it stands for numbness of emotions like hatred, indifference, and the like. And what are they going to cause? They are going to bring humanity to end. They are going to bring the world to end. So the humanity, it will succumb to surging desires and inflated passion on one hand, but if the chance is given to ice, then even ice will be able to do the same. So chance will be given to ice means the poet says if the world is to end twice. Now the explanation. So explanation, so we'll have the poem on one side and then we'll be doing the explanation. So right in the beginning, the poet introduces us with a conflict, whether the world will end in fire or in ice. So here we see, some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. So in the beginning, right in the beginning, we are introduced to a conflict. So he presents us with two groups when he says, some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. So we have here two groups. So the end of the world at some point is inevitable. The only thing to see is whether it will burn in fire or freeze in ice. And the poet tells us that from what he has tasted, so from what I have tasted of desire. So tasted actually is experience. So he says because of his own experience of desire, so he says that what he has tasted, that is from his experience, he also stands in favor of fire. So, like the group that feels that the world will end in fire. So, he says that he also stands in favor and he also supports the group that says that the world will end in fire. The intense desire and fiery passion would be enough to take the world to its destruction. So this group believes that the intense desire and fiery passion, which stands for fire, so these are the symbols of fire, would be enough to take the world towards its destruction. Then the second stanza, another thought springs in his mind as he ponders on what the other group has suggested. So the other group says that, but if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. So the other thought also seems equally okay to him. So he says, another thought springs in his mind as he ponders on what the other group has suggested. So extreme icy temperature is also capable of taking the world on the verge of destruction. So in case of the world, if it has to end twice, the all-consuming emotions of hatred and indifference will also suffice. So suffice means enough for the purpose. That will also be able to do the or solve the purpose. Now we come to the literary devices. So the explanation is done. We've done symbolism and we've done the theme and central idea. Now we come to literary devices. Now first stanza, the rhyme scheme it is A, B, A, A. So here we have fire, desire and fire. So A, and in between the second line is B as ice. So when we come to the second stanza, then we have A, B, A, B, A. So we have twice, ice and suffice. So here we have A, then third we have A, and then fifth we have A. And in between, so at second place and at fourth place, we have B, hate and great. So here, this is the rhyme scheme. Now next is anaphora. So as explained, anaphora, when a word is repeated at the start of two or more consecutive lines, it is a device of anaphora. So a word repeated at the start of two or more consecutive lines. So here this green one, some say, some say. So this is anaphora. This is repetition at the beginning of two consecutive lines. So here we have anaphora. Now comes tone. So the tone of the poem actually it is declarative. The poet is it's declaring to the world that how the world is going to end. So the tone is declarative. The mood of the poem. Now mood of the poem it is thoughtful and reflective. So as we read the poem, we go into deep thoughts. So it is reflective, it's thoughtful. Now we have alliteration also. So here I'll explain alliteration like this only. So here favor and fire. So F here first sound of favor and first sound of fire. So they are repeating. And we also have alliteration here, world will. So verse sound of world and verse sound of will. So this is again verse sound is repeating. So here we have alliteration also. Now next we come to the message of the poem. So message is loud and clear. Man, because of his unbridled desire and greed for more, will cause the world to end. The uncontrollable fire of passion will blaze humanity to ashes if not taken under control. Also, hatred and other cold emotions prevalent in society have the same power to end the world. Thus, the poet warns us that these two extremes are enough to lead the world to its demise. So, we need to be watchful. So, through this, the poet is also actually trying to tell us it is the poet is telling us that if we are not able to control these emotions, then the doom is right there and we will have to suffer. Now we come to important questions. Now, why is the poet in favor of those who believe that the world will end in fire? Now, the poet is in favor of those who believe that the world will end in fire because of his experience with it. So, we have read the poet says of uh, the, the way he has tasted desire. So, the world will succumb to increasing desires and intense passions, which are symbolized by fire in the poem. So, therefore, he favors fire because of his experience. But the second question says that why do some say that the world will end in ice? Now, some they are of the view that the world will end in ice as indifference, rigidity, and hatred, emerging out of cold reason, has become a routine and can consume the world silently and steadily. So, there is a group that is of the opinion that these cold emotions these are increasing day by day, so these have become a routine, so because of these, so these can consume the world silently and steadily. So this is another very equable chance. Now, how will the world end twice? So this is important question, that how can world end twice? So both the fire and ice, they are capable of bringing destruction. The poet says that excessive desire and greed will take the world towards its end. If desire and greed are not able to do it, then icy numbness and hatred will do the job if it were to happen for a second time. So here the poet is actually saying that fire, the increase in desires and greed, that is going to take the world towards end, that is for sure. But he says that if given a chance they are not able to, then I see numbness, hatred, indifference, and cruelty. That is also too much in the society. It is also prevalent to such an extent that it will do or it will serve the purpose if it were to happen for second time. So that is the answer for how will world end twice. Now that's all for this poem. So I hope you liked it. Now the questions, I haven't taken more questions because all the questions they have almost a similar answer. So every question you have to write these things again and again. So that is why I haven't taken enough questions. But in case you want more, then I can do another video on questions, only questions for this poem. Kindly subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and hope that you liked it and you will enjoy it. Bye for now. Thank you very much.